What's up, everybody? Welcome to the video. Chris Pennell here, breaking down my tight end tier rankings for the 2025 fantasy football season. And we're wasting no time here. Let's get into the S tier, and these three are definitely cut above the rest. We have Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, and George Kittle. Honestly, you can make this in any order you want, but I think Brock Bowers does deserve to be the tight end one this season. Then Trey McBride and George Kittle, complete toss-up to me. I feel a little bit safer with Trey McBride as far as staying healthy. All season we have seen George Kittle from time and time again miss some time. For whatever reason, the 49ers just seem to always have some injuries. But Brock Bowers, we'll talk about him first. You do have to pay a premium for these guys, but you do have a nice positional advantage on the league if you do reach for them a bit. And, you know, these days, some of these tight ends are just straight up wide receivers on their teams, and that's what these guys do offer you. But Bowers last season, rookie year, second in fantasy points per game, first in total fantasy points, second in receptions, second in targets last year, third in receiving yards per game. Didn't get as many touchdowns. He was 12th in that category, which isn't horrible, especially when you're getting the yardage and the targets and receptions that he had last year. But the quarterback situation and the Las Vegas Raiders offense in general, just not very appealing. Should be a bit of an upgrade this season. We have Chip Kelly, we have Geno Smith, and Geno Smith's not a world beater, but I would say he's an upgrade from the likes of guys like McConnell and whatnot. And we also have Ashton Genty, which is going to keep the defenses a little bit more honest with the run game compared to what they had last season. And the big kicker here for Brock Bowers in his rookie season, 0% bad games last year. McBride, Kittle, incredible, but they still had bad games too for George Kittle. 1 for Trey McBride. 8 elite games, 4 good, 5 average. There's no safer tight end in the league, in my opinion, than Brock Bowers. I know he looks old, but he's still young. The hair is thinning, but the fantasy points should not. Trey McBride was hyper-targeted last season. He just edged out by 0.19 for Brock Bowers in targets per game. First in receptions per game, had over 100 last season. Second in fantasy points total, third in fantasy points per game. Also, just could not get into the end zone last season. You think Brock Bowers a little bit low, being 12th, 27th for Trey McBride. They finally got him a couple of touchdowns at the end of the season. I mean, we're talking 0 touchdown receptions heading into week 17. Got touchdowns in the last 2 games of the season. You have to assume with that usage, it's almost impossible for him to replicate only 2 touchdowns this year. So if those numbers go up with similar usage, I mean, Trey McBride could easily be the overall tight end one this season. And then George Kittle. He does not get quite the usage of Trey McBride and Brock Bowers, but he is very efficient. And this is an offense that's going to put up points. The 49ers system is fantastic. They always score points. And if that's going to be the case, Christian McCaffrey can't do everything. At some point, you never know, he might get injured. And the wide receiver situation is definitely not great. Currently, they lost Deebo Samuel. Brandon Ayuk is currently on the pup. Juwan Jennings is still a bit iffy right now in training camp. You have Ricky Purcell. He's there. They brought in DeMarcus Robinson. The tight end 2 in this team is obviously not a threat. So, I mean, this offense right now is just going to be George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey. And I see no reason why George Kittle can continue to produce similar production. He was first in fantasy points per game last season, third in total fantasy points. Like I said, just does not get quite the volume. 6 in receptions per game, 7 in targets. But these are still really good numbers. First in receiving yards and second in receiving touchdowns per game. Did have a couple of stinkers last season. 2 bad games, which equates to 13% of the time. But led all tight ends with 60% of the time he was giving you in a league game when he's on the field and healthy, which I know can sometimes be a bit of a question mark for George Kittle. It feels like it's almost safe to assume he'll miss a game or 2, which is why I think he is behind Trey McBride and Brock Bowers, but you cannot go wrong with any of these 3. Dropping down to the A tier, we have 3 more players here, and it's kind of sad to see Travis Kelce in this range. He was always in that Brock Bowers spot. In the S tier, the surefire 101, monster season after monster season. And while he wasn't bad last season, we saw the drop off. He didn't look as spry out there, looked kind of slow at times. We saw some drops as well, but I think just the consistency of having the same coach, the same system, the same quarterback, and obviously the connection that him and Patrick Mahomes have, I mean, it's almost unmatched in the league, and that's always going to keep him viable. They're going to find ways to make this work, and we saw it at certain points of the season last year. I mean, it was good enough for still being the 5th best fantasy tight end last year, 7th in points per game, 3rd in receptions though, 4th in targets, 5th in receiving yards per game. Didn't get to the end zone too often. It was 22nd in that category, but I think the one thing that's going to help him out a bit is that we still have the looming Rashee Rice suspension. When Rashee Rice is out, Patrick Mahomes is going to have to look his way. I know we have other options like Xavier Worthy, but I mean, Travis Kelce is still going to be a key cog of this offense, and while the targets are not going to be as efficient as they were in the past, the tight end position is not the greatest, obviously, so it doesn't take too much to be valuable. TJ Hawkinson, another guy that might have some question marks this year. We obviously have a new quarterback and JJ McCarthy. Coming off the injury last season, he was fine, but did not get into the end zone at all I mean, we're talking still 9th in targets per game at 6.2. He was 12th in receptions per game. Obviously, the fantasy total was not great, but 18th in fantasy points per game for TJ Hawkinson. But like I said, he just did not get into the end zone. I would think it's pretty unlikely TJ Hawkinson does not score a touchdown this season. And I would say on average, we're going to get a weekly projection, at least from Vegas, probably around 3.5 receptions, 3.5 to 4, around 35 to 45 yards in that range. And you're always going to have the chance to get into the end zone. So I think that puts him right around that top 5 range for tight ends this year. And then Sam Laporta, horrible start to last season, definitely got better. He was done with the ankle injury, and the second half of the season definitely looked a lot better for him. I like the red zone usage. We're always going to get touchdown upside out of him. He was 5th in touchdowns per game at the position last year. But I mean, once we kind of get past those elite 3 for the tight end position, we're kind of just hoping for that 3 to 5 reception mark on a weekly basis. We're hoping for, on a good day, around 50-ish yards. But you really need to bank on that touchdown. That's what it is. Guys like Kittle, McBride, Bowers, they can get you there without the touchdowns. They can get nearly 100 receiving yards in a game. They can get 6, 7 receptions. We're not really getting that out of guys like TJ Hawkinson and Sam Laporta. Probably not much out of Travis Kelce these days. I think we'll still see a couple of boom games. I mean, he had 38% of the time he had an elite game last year, 12% bad, 38% average. Hawkinson, I mean, coming off the injury, so let's be fair. But 20% of the time elite, 30% of the time bad. Sam Laporta, 25% of the time bad. Like, there's just such a major drop-off that first 3. I mean, they're barely busting for you, and they have a lot of elite games. And Kittle 60% of the time. Meanwhile, Hawkinson ranked 5th, which, you know, if you're ranked 5th at the running back or wide receiver position, you're still elite. Hawkinson, I mean, 2 elite games last year, and we have him ranked 5th here 20% of the time. So you gotta be careful after this drop off, because it's not like other positions. And then we got the B tier, and we're gonna kick it off with David Njoku, who honestly could make it to the A tier this season, maybe with glimpses of the S tier, depending on how the quarterback situation goes. Right now, if Joe Flacco was a guarantee to start the entire season for the Cleveland Browns, which is obviously not the case, I mean, you could really make a case for Njoku in that S tier. We saw it was a smaller sample size with Joe Flacco in 2023, but he was elite. We're talking a 5-game sample size, 8.6 targets per game, over 6 receptions, nearly 80 receiving yards, and over half a receiving touchdown per game on average with Joe Flacco. We know Flacco will ascend the tight end position here for the Cleveland Browns. I'm assuming he's going to start at the beginning. At some point, we're probably going to see Sanders. I highly doubt we have Flacco start the entire season. And Njoku was still good last year. We're talking 4th in receptions per game, 3rd in targets per game, 7th in receiving yards, 4th in receiving touchdowns. Obviously, Jameis Winston can help out some things, but if it is Flacco, I mean, I love David Njoku this season. I would have him probably the number 1 guy on the A tier. I don't think maybe I'd quite put him in that S tier, but Njoku has a ton of upside here. Super high ceiling as well. Evan Ingram, I know this says Jacksonville. I do know he is on Denver. These old player cards only pull in their headshots from last season, so I do apologize. But I think Ingram has some really good upside this season. I know he's getting older, and he's no longer the young high upside guy that we kind of thought of in the past when he started out on the New York Giants. But I do think there is some nice upside here. He's shown that he can handle some decent volume in Jacksonville, but this is a better situation under Sean Payton's system. Bo Nix looked really good last year, and I think he's only going to get better another year with Sean Payton as well. So Evan Ingram does have 10-1 upside. Now, Mark Andrews, I think we all remember the first 5 weeks of the season last year. Had 2 weeks in a row of 0 points, and you probably started him in those games. Maybe not the second time, but the first time you probably did, and man, it hurt. And his overall averages last year were horrible. He was 1st in touchdowns per game. I will give him that. He scored a touchdown, I believe, every single week from week 12 to the very end last season, and then he had a 0 touchdown game before that, and then there was another game with touchdown, 2 touchdowns, 1 touchdown. Touchdown scoring machine, it saved his season. He was still 8th in fantasy points per game last year, 6th in fantasy total points at tight end position, so that firmly put him as a tight end 1. But man, the volume was not great, which we know the Baltimore Ravens are not really a team that likes to throw the football. The passing game has to rely on efficiency, and that's what got Andrews there in the second half of the season. 15th in receiving yards per game, 27th in targets per game, and 23rd in receptions. 29% of the time, he was giving you a bad game, 12% average, 24% good, 35% elite, which is pretty good. We'll give him that. David Njoku also had 45% of the time elite games last season. Then we got the C tier, and these are the real 3 catches, 35 yards. Maybe they get into the end zone merchants. I'll talk about the established players first, then we'll get to the rookies at the end. We do have Loveland and Warren, who I think people are going to be excited about. Everyone's excited about the shiny new toys, high draft picks, high draft pick tight ends typically people are pretty excited about. We saw that with Kyle Pitts, and unfortunately we saw how that's worked out. We don't even see him on here yet, which is not a good sign. But Tucker Kraft, fun fact about Tucker Kraft last season, he's not an exciting player by any means, but he did lead all tight ends in yards after catch average, even better than George Kittle, which I thought was interesting. I mean, he played 17 games last year, so it's not like it was a smaller sample size. But he was 26 in targets per game, 15 in fantasy points per game overall. I mean, he didn't really miss weeks, so he finished 10th. That put him in low-end tight end 1 status, but the volume is not really there. He was 12th in yards per game, which is fine, 6th in receiving touchdowns, which is nice, which is kind of what catapulted him into that top 10 range of fantasy tight ends last year, but nothing great. I mean, 3 elite games last season, 4 good, 6 average, 4 bad. I mean, this is your typical low-end tight end 1 numbers. I doubt he's going to be able to keep up that yards after catch average. And there's a lot of targets to go around in this offense. They brought in Golden, and they obviously have 25 wide receivers that they use on a weekly basis. So, I mean, he's a low-end tight end 1 because he could get into the end zone. He's a touchdown target for Jordan Love, but it's not fun. Then Jake Ferguson. If you guys watch my other videos, I really like Dak Prescott this year. I like CeeDee Lamb. I like George Pickens. I just like the entire passing attack from this Dallas Cowboys offense. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball very well. I don't think the defense is going to be very good. Michael Parsons one's out now at this point. So it's going to be a situation where the Cowboys are probably throwing the ball roughly around 40 times per game this year. And that's going to be the case. I mean, it just can't all go to CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. Ferguson's going to get involved. They paid him. The targets were still there last year, but without Dak Prescott, obviously Cooper Rush. I mean, I think a lot of people probably hate Dak Prescott, but I would much rather have Dak Prescott under center than I would Cooper Rush for this passing attack. So I'm going to be in on Ferguson. Only 1 good game last year, 43% of the time. Bad game. 29% average, 21% good, 7% elite. Not great, but I do think we're going to be on the up and up this year after getting Dak Prescott back, and hopefully he can stay healthy. And then we have Dallas Goedert, a guy that's pretty low on my board despite being 10th in fantasy points per game last year. The only issue is this Philly passing attack, while it's good when they do pass, they just don't do it very often. I mean, A.J. Brown will get his, but everybody here relies on efficiency. Devontae Smith has to be efficient. Goddard has to be efficient. He also has to get into the end zone because he's not a guy that's going to be putting up Trey McBride-type numbers with 8 targets per game, 6 catches, 80 yards, and a touchdown. Dallas Goedert's a guy where if he's not getting into the end zone, you're typically looking at 3 to 4 catches, 30 to 40. On good days, he can get you around 50. He averaged 49 receiving yards per game last year. I'm not sure if that's going to be able to get that high this season, but you're battling for double digits if you're not in the end zone, which is honestly, I mean, it's not like it's too far off of the other guys we were talking about. It's right in that category. You know, he's a talented tight end, but, you know, as the years go on, he's getting older and older. And again, everybody in the passing attack in this offense has to rely on efficiency. And then we have the 2 rookie tight ends. Both drafted in the top 15 of the draft. 10th overall for Loveland out of Michigan, and then 14th overall for Warren out of Penn State. Both guys have all the talent in the world. Rookie tight ends can always be a bit iffy. Brock Bowers, of course, he's now the 101 after being a rookie last season, so it's not impossible. We've seen it before. The only issue is, I would say for both, Loveland's in a very crowded offense, and Cole Kmet's still there. He's still a body that is going to be on the field at times. I would obviously say Loveland's more talented, but it might take a little bit of time for Loveland to establish himself as the head of one of that offense. And either way, there's still a lot of targets to go around for everybody else. I mean, you have Dunze, Luther Burden, DJ Moore as well. Keenan Allen's gone, but still not like it's not like there's nobody else and it's just Loveland and we're going to get 6 targets a game. That's definitely not going to be the case. Then as for Warren, I mean, we have a shitty quarterback situation with Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. He's clearly the best tight end on the team. I mean, you have Ogletree, Mo Alley Cox. I mean, they should never see the football field. So Warren will have playing time, of course. And we know he's, like I said, very, very talented. It's just a team that likes to run the football. You have a mobile quarterback, and he can't really throw the ball well. The one thing I will say, though, I mean, tight ends, middle of the field, safety blanket for Anthony Richardson. It's not like he's taking deep shots towards Warren, so that could help him out a bit. I think they're both like in the top end of that tight end 2 range, very, very potential low end tight end 1s, but it's hard to project rookie tight ends. I think Bowers was very safe last year. These guys, not so much, but they could go pretty much anywhere from the B to C tier, I think. I would say it's probably going to be difficult for them to end up in the A tier by the end of the season unless they can really establish themselves. And we're getting into full-on tight end 2 status here, and I am not someone that ever carries 2 tight ends. If you do that, shame on you. Absolutely no reason to. I mean, I know you can play the matchup game if you want, but just add 1, drop 1 every single week. It does not seem worth it to me. Now, obviously, guys like Kincaid, Henry, and have upside. week to week. Jonnu Smith, he is not someone I am really in on this year. I know he was fantastic last season, looking at the numbers. 4th in fantasy points overall, 4th in points per game, 6th in targets, 7th in receptions, 4th in receiving yards per game, 3rd in touchdowns per game. I just don't see this replicating. I think it was a situational thing in Miami, and I really don't think we're going to get the same thing in Pittsburgh. And we also have Pat Freiermuth there. He's not going to completely go away. I would say Jonnu Smith's the better tight end, but it's just I'm not really that high on there. I think Aaron Rodgers will target him. Like, I still have him in the D tier above Freiermuth, but not exactly excited about it. Cade Otton, he actually had a pretty decent year last season. He was 12th in fantasy points per game at the position, 14th overall, 8th in targets per game, 8th in receptions, 10th in receiving yards, 13th in touchdowns. He was fine. The only issue is his great games happened when the entire receiving core was injured, so of course there's nowhere else to go. Besides Cade Otton, you give him 10 targets because who else are you going to throw the football to? I don't really think that's going to replicate this season unless the whole receiving core goes down once again. I mean, sure, Chris Godwin's coming off a big injury. Mike Evans is getting older, but you still have 2 younger guys in Jalen McMillan and Ibuka. So probably won't happen again, but he's the tight end one of this offense, and I think he's at least a safe bet to get a handful of targets on a weekly basis. And I do believe in this Tampa Bay offense. I absolutely love it this season. I don't think Baker will probably get to the levels that we saw last season, but even a little bit of a drop off is fine for this offense. After that, there ain't much. I do think Hunter Henry will be pretty consistently solid this year. He's not a flashy guy, but he'll get you there if you just need a bye week fill in or playing the matchup game or your guy gets hurt. Kincaid should have more upside than he does, but man, with Josh Allen last year, as good as Josh Allen was, you would think his receiving options did a lot better, but you just can't count on any of them. Khalil Shakur was somewhat, like, he was the safe option. He had a couple of ceiling games, but really, you weren't really happy with any of the Buffalo Bills guys. There were ceiling weeks for these guys, yes, but you can't trust them. You can't start them with confidence, I would say, outside of Khalil Shakur. Like, if we're looking at Kincaid last year, he was 22nd in points per game tight end position. He played 13 games last year, 30th tight end overall. 12th in targets per game, which isn't horrible. 18th in receptions, 22nd in receiving yards, 24th in receiving touchdowns. It's just when they get in the red zone, they get near the goal line, they're not looking to throw the ball. They're looking to run the ball with James Cook or Josh Allen. That can really hurt the touchdown upside. So, I mean, Kincaid's all right. Like, he's not talented. He's fine, but the reason he's this high is because he's on a good offense that can score points, and at some point you're just going to get into the end zone a little bit. But the upside's there. It's just probably won't be consistent by any means. Juwan Johnson should be a safety valve for whatever miserable quarterback that the Saints are going to end up rolling out. The F tier, hopefully you're not playing anybody from the F tier unless it's a complete dire situation. I would have liked to have Mike Gesicki a bit higher, but they added Noah Fant. We did see when T. Higgins was down, we saw some slot work out of Mike Gesicki, just basically kind of being a wide receiver. Had a couple of ceiling games, but also some pretty bad clunkers as well. Likely's kind of like the tight end handcuff, the only tight end handcuff I think there is, because when Mark Andrews goes down, I think you can just firmly put Isaiah Likely right there where he is in that B tier. We know he has upside, and there is weeks with Mark Andrews in that he can absolutely blow up. We saw it in the primetime game, I think, to kick off the season last year, but it's just hard to trust him with 2 tight ends on the field, and Andrews is definitely the red zone target. That being said, that's all for today's video. So if you enjoyed it, even if you didn't, make sure you like down below. Subscribe to the channel for brand new. If any questions, comments, concerns, or leave your own rankings down below, I'm more than happy to answer them. Wish you the best. I'll see y'all next time.